The Sierra Leone Peace and Cultural Monument represents the country's resilience, built around remembering those who gave up their yesterdays so we could enjoy our todays. And this is part of the resilience that Sierra Leone has been able to build around different ecosystems. Welcome to this edition of EdTech Mondays Africa, where we're coming to you from Freetown, Sierra Leone's capital, and we're here to explore the inclusive policies that the country is putting in place and making commitments on that are centering engagement and youth innovation. Inclusive policies don't just benefit the policymakers, they also benefit the educators, the teachers, and the learners as well. And where inclusion is prioritized, there are even better learning outcomes, not just for those who have, but also for the have-nots, the marginalized communities, young girls and women who would like to continue their education. So we're here at Rising Academy in Freetown, Sierra Leone. This school hosts or enrolls about 900 learners every academic year. What are some of the lessons we can learn from the school where implementation of policies are at the heart of their pedagogical methods? So allow me introduce Honorable Haja Ramatulai Wuri, who is the Minister of Higher Education in Sierra Leone. And we also have Honorable Conrad Sake, Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education in Sierra Leone. Honorable Sake, I'm going to start with you, knowing that Sierra Leone has made great strides in ensuring policies cover a core population, in this case, a core demographic. Who are the young people? Do the policies currently in place center or ensure inclusive digital education in the country?
Well, first of all, I think we've introduced a raft of policies that, they speak to the inclusion agenda. I would start off with the policy of radical inclusion, which actually focuses on 4 constituent parts. Firstly, the girl child, and then the girl child in relation to those who are parent mothers or pregnant in school. It also speaks to those who are disabled, and it also speaks to those who are in the urban and rural areas. So you look at that urban-rural divide, and it also speaks to the girl child that are, the young people that are marginalized, hard to reach areas. And all of those kids need to be included in the educational space. We also have our education sector plan, which brings this to life. And in the education sector plan, the strategic objective 9 specifically speaks to the use of technology and data in both the way we provide our services, but also in terms of the teaching and learning space. So this is where it actually comes to life. We have just recently also done a national digital learning strategy, and that specifically looks at that digital space on the 4 or 5 components. Firstly, around connectivity, the second around computers, and that also includes mobile devices. It also speaks to the content. So we try to localize the content that I use, and it also speaks to connectivity, both in terms of energy, but also in terms of accessing internet facilities. And the overarching one is about how do we coordinate this using various stakeholders, including the private sector. So those policies, strategies really speak to the agenda of being inclusive in that digital space. And that's the framework within which we operate.
Honorable Haja, how is higher education aligning with the national development policies?
I always say that the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, we build upon the foundation made at basic and senior secondary education. And I say that because there should be continuity. We protect the investment that the government has made into basic and senior secondary, not just at education for education policies, but also, as you mentioned, the campaigns on how we can ensure that we protect historically vulnerable groups and ensure that we give them the right foundation for them to contribute meaningfully. So I protect the investment that has been made into basic and senior secondary education and ensure that our young people have the right skills to take their rightful place in the driving seat to push forward socio-economic development. I cannot do that and not align with the government's agenda when it comes to development, the medium-term national development plan and the big 5 game changers. So we have to ensure that we position our universities, our vocational training institutions to develop the critical mass of young people with the right skills across the different sectors that we have identified or the medium-term national development plan has identified as growth sectors. That would lead to economic diversification because now we're targeting current sectors, but also having that horizon scanning, looking ahead, what are the emerging sectors, and being proactive and acting now as opposed to being reactive. And we have to do all of that, but putting the young people at the center of all of that.
How are we ensuring we are aligning towards centering young people? Because if you look at the history of Sierra Leone, you've dealt with quite a number of challenges, you know, the Ebola pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the civil wars, and even climatic shocks, the catastrophes as well of 2017. So when you put all of that together, how do you think we can ensure that we are aligning this to the young people's needs? Because we're moving in a fast, digitally changing world. How are we aligning this to the Agenda 2063?
Well, first of all, the Agenda 2063 speaks to the issue of the Africa that we want. In other words, we need to be able to develop our young people for the skills of the 21st century. And all the education sector plans in the continent should really align with that. And this, when I take what is actually happening in Sierra Leone, it speaks to the 5 game changers. There are 3 aspects of those 5 game changers that speaks to this agenda. Firstly, it's the issue of inclusive human capital development, which has been the flagship of the government for 2 terms now. The second is we have what is called the Youth Employment Scheme, which speaks to creating the skills that are needed for employment. So foundational learning is an essential part of what we are doing in Sierra Leone. But in addition to that, on top of that, we are also teaching our kids employability skills and entrepreneurship. Also STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are the skills that you need for the 21st century. And so this is also forms an essential part of the recipe that we provide for our kids.
How do you ensure that the policies are being implemented?
We are now focused on the impact of these policies. So with all of the policies that we developed in the first term, we are now developing an implementation strategy to make sure that they are being implemented. Well, how do we monitor this? We have school quality assurance officers. We now have an app that actually gives weighting to these different aspects of inclusion, and we use that app to decide and determine whether a particular institution is actually implementing those policies and it's having the impact that we so desire.
Honorable Haja, what are some of the tangible results that you've realized since you started socializing the country with the value of TVET and not looking at it as a second-class option, but that it's actually an option that could set them on the right path to dignified and fulfilling work at some point in the future?
In the eastern part, not too far from here, we have the Government Technical Training Institute in an area called Kisi was recently converted to a Center of Excellence for Automotive Training, supported by the Government of Japan, the Government of Sierra Leone, and working in partnership with UNIDO and the private sector. And it's a Center of Excellence now for automotive training, a sector that we have identified as a growth sector. It's in our medium-term national development plan, but how do we train young people, both young men and young women? And I'm stressing on young women, because when you look at the automotive sector, it's historically dominated by men. I always say it's testosterone heavy, but how do we change that narrative and bring more women within that space and create a pathway for young women to thrive in these historically male-dominated spaces? And again, we've enrolled 200 young people in the first cohort, but the demand is there. We have partners helping us to construct government technical institutes nationwide. Bonn, for example, even though we only have the building, we're gradually equipping the building to have the equipment, the learning equipment, the communities. They're always asking, when are we going to start? So slowly we're changing the narrative, but we're not doing it in silos. We're ensuring that all the relevant stakeholders, their voices are captured to ensure that there's that sense of ownership at all levels, which will support sustainability.
Sierra Leone has a largely young population. I'm thinking about 80% of the population is below the age of 35. And the future of work today depends heavily on the ability of these young people to be able to have the right skills, digital skills to be precise. Are we happy with the trajectory we have set our young people on? Because that there determines whether or not in 10 years' time, these young people that we have in the room today will be able to say, would like to thank Honorable Wuri, Honorable Saki for the decisions they made in 2025 or before that have set us on the path that we are at today.
Human capital development is the bedrock for development, and we always say 2 ministries, 1 sector, and we have to create that foundation that our young people can thrive from. But there's so many things to think about, and we have, policy directives, strategic plans, but it all goes back to ensuring that you bring everybody into the room and co-create solutions. There is a lot that we have done within that space, but there's a long way that we need to go. But it's about being deliberate, being intentional, investing in the right things, and being transparent, and building systems that will stand the test of time. So that's just one example. And that is something anybody within the academic space will be able to tell you, that we know what the problems are. I'm just giving you one example. And we could talk about those problems forever. It is not going to be solved overnight, but then if you bring everybody on board, everybody has a space where they feel like my voice is being heard, my views are being respected, and it's been entwined within the roadmap as to how we want to move to the next stage, then I think that's something that would be of value.
My approach to this is like this. Firstly, we've introduced digital skills as part of our foundational learning mix, which means that the new generation or young generation of our kids will have that digital skills right at the first 4 years of education. Having said that, in order for us to completely and effectively achieve that goal, we need to develop the capacities of our teachers, because somebody needs to teach them these skills. And so what we have done in terms of that space, we have a licensure exams where teachers who have graduated from university with education degrees, before they go into the classroom, I want to take them to a test that they are teach ready. And for that, they need to pass 5 subjects. Firstly, English, which is the medium of instruction. Second, mathematics, which is, even if you're not teaching mathematics, It helps you in terms of problem solving, computational thinking. The third is ICT. They have to have some access to ICT because it gives you access to resources. And the third is professional standards, what we expect of those teachers. The fifth is pedagogy, how to teach. And how to teach these days will include educational technology. So that's how we are dealing with that. But having said all of that, there is a bridge between where we are now and my future expectation.
Head teachers play a critical role in implementing educational policies, and inclusive policies are where educators thrive the most. We're here at Rising Academies, a school in Waterloo in Sierra Leone, and we're here to find out exactly how they're implementing the national educational policies, especially those that are aligned to inclusion.
At Rising Academy, we set our policies through structural lesson plan and also class management and student safeguarding. The policies helps us to achieve our goals and expectations through various means like monitoring, implementing the policies when it's necessary, re-echo the policies again to the students, parents, and the teachers when it's necessary. So the policies is the greatest backbone for any educational institution or any other institution.
Are there specific considerations you have to make when you are talking about inclusion at the school?
First of all, our school is a friendly school wherein everybody is inclusive, more especially the students. We include them in taking certain decisions, making certain decisions. Sometimes they brought up some ideas how we should do things that will be beneficial to them. So the students, the parents, teachers, everyone is inclusive when it's time for the policy implementation.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a school in Waterloo? And what are some of the successes as well, if you might want to tell us about those?
One of the greatest challenges is for my teachers, students, to adapt a new change. So that is one of the greatest challenges, but because of consistency and because of frequent reminder, frequent implementation of the policy, they adapt. And one of the greatest success for my school at Waterloo here is students learning, improvement in their learning, and change of their behavior. And also the biggest we have achieved is when Rising Academy School Waterloo been named as one of the top 3 finalists in the World Best School Prizes.
What are the considerations you have and how intentional are you in making sure there's a balance between girls and boys enrollment?
What we notice in our school is the high rate of girl students to the school. So we have a set targets per classroom. As soon as we meet the set targets, what will happen, we stop the enrollment. But because of the safeguarding policy that we have in our school, because we are monitoring teachers, we are monitoring students, we are monitoring the community people, most of the parents prefer Rising Academy for their girl child. The reason is, at Rising Academy, we have policy of safeguarding, no corporal punishment in the school, no sexual harassment, no emotional harassment. Because of that, most of the parents are sending their girls' child to school. And the greatest thing for that, the girls are performing way above the boys. So because of the safety, the safeguarding policy in our school, we have more girls than boys.
How are you incorporating technology into your learning environment?
Technology is a key pillar of learning. For instance, we have different aspects wherein we are implementing technology. For the primary kids, we are implementing technology through what we call One Tab. One Tab is a learning tablet wherein the students have so many, over 5,000 activities for them to be educated. Away from that, we also have one of our award-winning app, which is Rory. That is a math chatbot wherein students are engaged with the Rory app, solving mathematics questions, solving mathematics activities, as well as we have our computer lab, wherein the senior secondary school and the junior secondary school have been engaged so that they can have what is called innovation system in them. For innovation, it has helped improving the students' ability in reading at Rising Academy, the mathematics ability. And one of the greatest things that this innovation, this technology aspects have caused for us, it improve our enrollment in our school. Because the district that we find ourselves, one of the challenges from the other schools, they do not have what Rising Academy is offer. That when it comes to Rising Academy in terms of technology, we are using technology everywhere. Student attendance technology, lesson plan technology. When it comes to their improvement in terms of reading and mathematics ability technology, and teachers monitoring technology. So technology at Rising Academy is playing key role in student improvement when it comes to their academics.
Policies don't just benefit the policymakers. They trickle down to those implementing the policies and those who are really acting the policies. So we've heard from the ministers who are creating an enabling environment through the policies, but now let's hear from the teachers at Rising Academy on how exactly they are actioning on the inclusive policies that Sierra Leone has. First, what does inclusion mean to you?
An environment that all the kids are involved, regardless of their ability, regardless of their gender and their background. They all have the right to participate to make a successful class.
For me, it's a teaching strategy, commitment, wherein you give a positive impact that is going to benefit the society by not looking at the background where the individual is coming from, by not looking at how the individual look like, either disabled or able. Just try to create a platform where everybody can benefit from what you want to give to them.
How are you encouraging inclusion? Because one of the things we've observed is that girls tend to shy away from use of technologies and by extension, even picking subjects that are aligned to the sciences. How do you as teachers ensure you're creating a balance or even creating the interest for them to pick up technology?
Girls also are pushing and pushing harder more than before so that they can benefit from STEM, which means science, technology, engineering, and that of mathematics. Of course, these are the basic fundamentals. Once you want to do technology, you must know this one. So we are pushing there. At Rising, we start from the low levels. Wherein, like now, we are using the RORI. It's a robot chat situation wherein you communicate and the machines answered you. You start to build your foundation right there that makes you more interested in technology.
What are the biggest challenges that you face as teachers that you would wish the government to help support to make it better for you to implement your pedagogical methods?
If the teachers have these trainings, they are well equipped with what they know, they will bring to the kids. But if the teachers are not well equipped, they don't know how to use technology, there is no way the kids will be able to learn. We need resources like the technology resources, like the computers. Schools need to have access of computers so they can practice it, they can see it. If they see it, they touch it, they feel it, they'll be able to do better.
When the teachers are able to implement their pedagogical methods in any classroom, one way to know that they're doing something right is through the learners' outcomes.
My favorite part about school is when we usually visit the computer lab for the classes of Khan Academy. And in these classes, we usually do some mathematics.
What's the best part about technology for you?
For me, actually, let me say the best part of it all, it helped me experience new things and learn gradually. The short videos and the exercise that they usually give to us, I have been able to improve on my lapses. So that have helped me a lot.
If you had an opportunity to ask your ministers who were here earlier today a question, what would you ask them?
There are lots of kids, because usually at my age, that I see out there suffering a lot. They do not have the opportunity as I do. Even though I do not have 100% the opportunity, but also I see through their constraints that they are going through. And some of them, maybe their parents don't usually stay with them, and they do not also have the access to these technology stuffs. So you see, they won't be able to learn that fast, and that will make their grades go low. So for me, I want the minister to give access to each and every child, for them to access these things, to help schools have these things.
EdTech Mondays Africa is in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and we are here to have conversations about inclusive policies, centering and engaging youth in innovation. And a great place for us to start, of course, is to understand the background of Sierra Leone, having dealt with so much. The country has built resilience and is now on a positive path towards ensuring that inclusion is really prioritized in the country. So I'm going to start with you, Reverend Dr. Olivia Wesley. You know, based on the notable strides that the country has made, I want to know from you, how is FAWE seeing this translate into meaningful access for girls and young women in rural communities?
FAWE is not only seeing it, but FAWE itself is inclusivity. From our inception 30 years ago, that is what we've been practicing, and that's who we are. The new thing is the digital age that we are in now. That will be the new thing that will be added to FAWE. And if that is added, definitely that is going to change the lives of girls and women more, because they will be open to a lot of things. They will understand themselves better. They will have better jobs. Even those who are market women will know how to do their finances. They will know what it stands for. Even going to the hospital, when the nurses and the doctors take care of them, if they are literate in the digital world, then they will understand better. So that's who we are. And we are only praying that things will become better for them through the digital age that we are now in.
Are there any gaps that you've observed in this effort to make it all inclusive?
Social norms, that is the first thing. Social norms in our country, Africa, the woman does not have too much say. Even though things have changed now, but social norms do not allow us to do what we want to do. Infrastructure, we talk about it. Not many people have even seen or touched a computer. And again, as I said before, if that is open up, that will help the girl child and the women to do better.
Givao, you know, when you listen to what Reverend Dr. Olivia is saying, you know, she says there are so many people in this country who have never even touched a computer. What kind of innovative support are you giving young people when it comes to encouraging them to take up innovation, or encouraging your entrepreneurs to innovate more and with inclusivity at the top of their minds?
We believe that creating technology doesn't mean that, just building the technology. It's about us creating the networks that makes this technology meaningful and accessible. So now we put this into three big ways. One is access and inclusivity, connectivity. And then the second is equity and inclusivity. So the third one is ecosystem convening. So I believe technology can break barriers through ecosystem approach. Right. Wherein startups innovate, and then the policymakers support, and the learners themselves co-create. That we create that, enabling environment that will make a sustainable strategy or policies for EdTech in Syria.
Faith, do you think that young people from marginalized groups, like girls, rural learners as well, are being included enough in decision making, or in this case, being brought to the table to get your feedback about what exactly it is that you want?
In my experience, I would say marginalized girls and young women are being prioritized and inclusive, although rural girls have more inclusivity than the urban girls. That's why our organization, FAWE, we have been working with our initiative models like the
the Tusemi model, which is a Swahili word that means to speak out. And this model has reached 100,000 school-going kids, pupils that are going to school. And also, our second model is the gender responsive pedagogy, which allows school-going pupils to have conducive environment for them to learn. And it has reached like 3,000 beneficiaries, because we as FAWE, we are focusing more on marginalized girls in the rural area that are in low-income family. And also, we also help girls to come into STEM for them to break the stereotype that only men can go into STEM systems. So we help. And also, the solution is that like we need more support, more funding as an organization to reach more schools, the 12,700 schools around the country, to be included in the digital platform.
Madeline, EdTech Hub, there's so much work that you're doing in terms of research, in terms of policy support where the government is concerned. But what does meaningful youth co-creation really mean? Or what does it look like just beyond being end users? Because I think the assumption here is that if we have the right solution, we will just give it to the country. But do you think there's co-creation that happens to figure out whether or not certain solutions work for the country or for young people?
So at EdTech Hub, we've been in Sierra Leone since 2019, and we've been supporting the government to improve education through the use of technology. And over this time, a lot has been done. We've seen positive progress. We've also seen continued challenges. There are some gaps when it comes to inclusive stakeholder engagement. We've seen where policies are being developed without the right stakeholders in the room. And at the EdTech Hub, we've developed a guidance brief on developing EdTech and digital learning strategies. And this brief has a number of a number of design principles. And the first principle is designing with the users, in this case, the youth, which is why when we were supporting the government, the Ministry of Basic and Senior Education, in developing Sierra Leone's first national digital strategy, which is a 5-year roadmap of the government EdTech priorities, what we did was ensure that we consulted the relevant stakeholders, teachers, youth, students. And then we did this to ensure that our policy, our strategy that we're developing reflects the voices of the youth. When you make sure that the voices of the youth are in your policy, you encourage ownership in terms of implementation. And I feel like there are two iterative approaches that government could use to ensure that the youth are put in the center in developing these policies. There is the agile approach or the problem drive iterative adaptation approaches. And with these two approaches in implementation, they ensure they allow for responsiveness to changing conditions and de-risking investment in EdTech, and also encouraging continuous co-designing with the users, the youth, and then it allows also for them to be able to incorporate feedback timely and often.
Reverend, to you now, Faith talked about 15,000 girls who have been supported through FAWE, and also Madeline has talked about, what exactly it is we need to do to close these gaps. First of all, understanding the context and the realities of what young people are dealing with, but what approach do you think can be adopted by the government to make sure that what Faith is saying, what Madeline is saying, and what Ngevao is saying are all piecing together to make the lives of young people more comfortable for them, but also lead them to a pathway to, the future of work, for example, through inclusion or inclusive policies?
Youth should be aware of what is going on. How do we make them to become aware? Seminars. When I say seminars, I don't mean just one locality. National seminars and workshops. You go out to meet them. You get the youths together to work with the MBSSC, Minister of Education, and other partners, calling them from different areas so that they know where they are going to. Get the youths to be open to understand that when they see the adults, they should not be afraid of them. They should be open to talk to them. Because that is one thing that you cannot find, even though now the youths they are more vibrant and open than before. But you will go to some areas, when they see a motor car coming, they will run away. So how do we get them to understand? So you work with the local partners in those areas to familiarize them with the things that are going on around. And those are two main things that we can use.
Right. So Faith, you, unlike maybe other young people, because Reverend here has talked about there's some young people who will see a car coming from afar and they'll run away, right? So if you look at the awareness that needs to be created, first of all, is the awareness of the policies that exist or do not exist. Are you aware, or are young people aware of the national policies that center fostering of youth innovation, for example, inclusive innovation for young people for the rest of the country?
Yes, there are innovations, which one is the National Digital Development Policy 2019 to 2029, which focusing on creating digital economy, which leveraging on digital technologies and also socio-economical development, and it aims to make Sierra Leone a middle income country by 2039. And also there is also the establishing of Minister Science and Innovation, Science, Technology and Innovation, which also another one is the Minister of Education and Innovation, which focuses on learning involved in technology in primary school. It's established in now our current curriculum for young people to learn about technologies and know about digital platforms that are now in our present time.
Right. And say for young girls in rural areas, young girls in marginalized communities, there are young girls who are in crisis areas, like areas that have been affected by mudslides, for example. There are families that have never recovered from losing their families to Ebola or to COVID-19 in Sierra Leone. And so because they've been affected by all these pandemics and the different catastrophes, they are locked out of the education ecosystem for different reasons, affordability and all of that. How best do you think those girls need to be supported? If you were a young person in a decision-making room, what would you say that would be able to bring those girls back into the education ecosystem?
First off, those girls, they are still humans and they have hopes to become somebody. So policies should be made for undeserved girls that are in communities and also bring them to give them the chance for them to have opportunity, to have access for good education. And there are more like opportunities like the radical inclusion, which is to allow even pregnant women and also mothers to have access to education, quality education. So there are also matters, and the government should give them the platform to to further their education and see how their life can be changed to inclusive.
Madeline, as we bring this conversation to a close, you know, there's so much that everyone here has talked about that still goes back to making sure that we are giving the right information to the decision makers. If there was one thing that you wanted the government to prioritize right now, what would that be?
We want diverse stakeholders, experts, partners to work with the government. The government is ready, they are poised and ready to implement this strategy so that marginalized learners are not left out in EdTech. So working with the government, getting partners to work with the government to make this NDLS actionable is one key request that I have to not just the government, because the government is ready, but there are limited resources and competing priorities.
Right. Faith, what was the one thing that you would want the government to prioritize?
I want the government to prioritize mentors for female, especially in the digital space. There are not so many mentors that girls will look up to for them to believe and know that they also can do it. And also government should prioritize youth inclusiveness.
Gival, what do you think the government needs to prioritize from an innovation SL perspective?
Policymakers support while the startups innovate. So I want the government to be supporting and leave the private sector to be implementing. Because when the government comes into, you know, the private sector, for example, the incubation and acceleration stuff, and then last year, the MOCTI campaign, the program that was organized by the Ministry of Communication and Technology, we actually partnered together to, you know, structure that whole event, of which it was a massive, you know, event, of which the entire country, students from different areas, from the, you know, provinces came. That is because the motivation there was transport reform and some other, you know.
So an enabling environment would allow for the private sector to implement. And finally, to Reverend Dr. Olivia, what do you think we need to prioritize going forward?
Thinking about the digital system, I think they should prioritize that in all schools. And make sure, well, you said one, I wanted to make mention of the guidance counseling units, you know, to be in charge. You know, guidance counseling units in our own days in the classroom, when you had a very good guidance counseling unit, it used to help. That we're talking about mentorship, but when you have the good guidance counseling units in the school, it helps a lot.
So to make the education more inclusive with prioritizing digital literacy programs, guidance counseling units. Okay, great. And so I think that brings us to the end of our conversation here. When it comes to inclusive policies that are centering youth innovation, there's so much that the panel has shared, and I believe that these solutions they have provided could set not just Sierra Leone, but the rest of the continent on the right track where youth innovation is concerned, but also where youth are put at the center of decision making. Thank you all very much for joining us on this conversation. For Sierra Leone, having dealt with 2 pandemics, there's so many lessons the country has been able to learn. And one of them is the fact that investments today in education will help inform future generations. And so part of these policies that have been committed to in the country also allow for more young girls to access education no matter where they are, and priorities are being put in place to have technology at the center. Thank you all for joining us on this edition of EdTech Mondays Africa. My name is Joy Doreen Bira, and we've been coming to you from Sierra Leone's capital, Freetown. And until the next edition, thank you all for joining us. Bye-bye for now.